We'll find out.
For more on Apple's Glow Time event, let's bring in Fast Money friend Gene Munster. Gene, so you're listening to this discussion, shrimp cowboy, et cetera.
Yes.
What is priced in? I mean, is a super cycle in any way priced in?
Not even close, Melissa. I think if you look at the street numbers right now for fiscal 25, is looking for iPhone growth of 5%, 6%. It's been basically flat the last couple of years. This is a lot of talk of a super cycle, but investors are generally following the same roadmap as the traders are, your esteemed traders are today. That's kind of a wait and see. And I would just say one perspective of this wait and see. A lot of the conversation today is about details of announcements, about specific features, pricing, timing, all of that makes sense, but ultimately it is noise. And the reason why it's noise is because to think of Apple Intelligence as a feature is a trap. Ultimately, this is a paradigm shift. This gets back to the question about where can these numbers go. And now I just want to quickly frame in the last paradigm shift we had around Apple devices. It's when the first iPhone came out, going from a flip phone, a keyboard, to a touch screen. There were 7 other competitors out there with touch screens, but none of them were able to capture the power of an app store. That changed a phone to a computer in your pocket. What Apple Intelligence has the power to do is ultimately bring simplicity and infinite intelligence to your pocket. Apple, 1.8 billion consumers are going to want that, Melissa. We're going to have a super cycle. It's going to exceed the 5 to 7% that the street's at.
Can you talk to Gene the difference in how the tech giants are pricing their AI products in that? And I think I asked you this question last week in that why does Microsoft Copilot, why does it charge something on top of as opposed to offer it as an integrated feature? And for the app, for iPhone 16 users, it'll be integrated into the phone. So can you speak to that strategy and how that may actually help the rest of the pack in terms of selling their AI products? Because here you're getting consumers to actually try it out and say, you know what, AI is not bad and it's actually helpful to my life, so I will pay for it elsewhere.
So the way the pricing has been working so far is it's a spectrum, and OpenAI really led the way with this. They give a free version away, and then they have a premium version that you pay $20 a month. That obviously has been the model now that like Gemini uses. Microsoft is adopting a similar approach, and Apple's going to do the same thing. A lot of the functionality that people are going to use day in, day out, this paradigm shift that I'm talking about, is going to be available in October and November for U.S. users. And that's just going to impact, that will be free. That will be free if you upgrade your phone, upgrade your hardware, your Mac, your iPad. And so I think that's one piece to it, the pricing strategy. The other is, of course, as more of these rich features come out, and that's where there's a new business model. There's a lot of questions like, what does beyond an iPhone upgrade 1 or 2 year cycle mean for Apple and AI? And they can have these more rich products that they can sell OpenAI with a premium version that Apple will take a 15% cut of. And so I think it's going to be a tiered pricing model, Melissa. And I think we're just so much talk about AI, but so few people have actually used it. And I will bet you that anybody who experiences these features are going to want to tell other people about them.
So, Gene, you're bringing up a really interesting kind of history lesson and a point about the competitive landscape as at the last, you call it, seminal moment. And I think about Apple here, and we spent so much time talking about China and why it's a headwind. But how about the rest of the world? I mean, is there anybody close? Does Apple, are they taking market share in other parts of the world? It's a part of the conversation we never had. And with this backdrop, does this further cement them as the leader in the places that aren't really China?
So about 1.8 million active users. They don't give that number out, but that's an estimate. So you think about kind of 5 or 6, 7 billion kind of active daily internet users. So that's been pretty stable, Tim. They really haven't been able to grow their market share much. I could see this as something that could take their phone market share from 18 to maybe 20%. So think of that as a kind of a marginal improvement. But what you said, I think, is really important. I just want to emphasize something, is that what Apple is doing here is there is something unique about bringing hardware, services, and software together. I don't say it because I don't want to like parrot the company's language, but I think it is important that the features, the reason why Apple has a 95% retention rate is that even though you can get a lot of those same features with Android, people love how everything works together. And I think they're going to do some of that same simplicity around bringing AI to multiple devices that you'll have. And I think that that's going to be a competitive advantage. And ultimately, I think it's going to mean incremental share gains. But more importantly, with that user base, is them spending more money with Apple.
Hey, Gene, it's Karen. Do you foresee at any point a bifold or folding phone from Apple?
Maybe. They're testing some devices. Clearly, the bigger form factors tend to sell better, so I'm sure there'll be some experimenting around that. I can say from a product perspective, the piece that I am most excited about, and this is a shift from what I've talked about before, I still believe that Vision Pro can be 5% plus of revenue. I used to think it could be 10%. But I think what they're going to do around wearables, AirPods with cameras ultimately, that's a much bigger opportunity than a foldable phone. This is basically smart glasses without having to wear smart glasses. This is some of the same features that Steve talked about. This is the Google Astra type, allowing AI to look at the world around you. I think that's a really compelling. We're probably a few years away, but when you think about what's next in terms of hardware, I think these wearables around AirPods and cameras are exciting and can be 10% plus of revenue.